Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the show. We were talking about in this episode how the left not only eats itself, but is almost required to eat itself because of their politics. Because when you have victimhood politics, then you have to compete to see who can be the biggest victim. Now, we looked at something that's just kind of tragic comedy in the first half, looking at the Oscars, where Hollywood actors are accusing Hollywood producers, writers, and directors of being so conservative and so racist that they didn't include enough people of color in an Oscars show. This is why they were eating themselves. They're not criticizing, as I said, they're not criticizing Rush Limbaugh, they're not criticizing the NRA, they're criticizing the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, which is probably the most liberal institution in the United States of America, because somebody has to be the top victim, you see? I heard a term about a year and a half ago, and the second I heard it, it made crystal clear sense to me. So if you wonder why all this is going on, here's a term I like very much, what the left is doing. What they're doing is they're virtue signaling. Well, what does that mean? Well, virtue signaling is how leftists not only communicate with each other, but it's how they rank each other. They're not allowed to compete in business. They don't have bigger cars than anybody else, not supposed to anyway. This entire young generation of millennials that are raised by the left, they can't compete in baseball games. They're not allowed to keep score. So what can they be good at? What are they allowed to compete at? Where does their self-esteem come from? And as it turns out, the world we've let them create for us today is a world where the person who can be the most victimized is the person who's the best person. And what point is it in being a victim if you don't get to show everybody how incredibly superior you are to other people because of your particular victimhood? That's why it's called virtue signaling. Great example of virtue signaling is this. I'm driving down the 405 freeway in my Camaro because it's a big, fast American car and I like it very much. And I'll get behind another car and it'll be a Toyota Prius, and on the back will be a bumper sticker that either says free Tibet or the coexist thing. Now, what's that bumper sticker there for? Does that guy actually think that having a free Tibet bumper sticker on his Prius in Los Angeles is going to free Tibet? No, it's got nothing to do with freeing Tibet, and he knows it. If he wanted to free Tibet, he'd have a bumper sticker that says National Rifle Association or United States Marine Corps. What that bumper sticker is there for is for him to show everybody else on the road what an incredibly deep and concerned and intelligent and moral guy he is. He knows all about the nuances of what's going on over in Tibet. And as a good person, he doesn't like to see people oppressed. So he's going to show you just how smart he is and especially how morally good he is. And this is called virtue signaling. Now, this tendency of virtue signaling on the left is getting so far out of hand. They're so desperate to compete for who's the biggest victim that, as I keep coming back to this idea, they're eating themselves. If Hollywood is criticizing Hollywood's celebrities, if black American actors are criticizing the motion picture of arts and sciences as being too racist, they're in trouble. And here's another criticism that I think is worth looking at. This is a recent clip from Oprah Winfrey about the election of Donald Trump. Oprah Winfrey, let's not forget, is the one who said Obama is the one. Enormous leftist. Let's have a look at this one.
Maybe we don't need any of them. Maybe we don't need Trump. Maybe we don't need Obama. Maybe we don't need Clinton. Maybe all we need
I see where you're going, Clay.
Oprah Winfrey.
Oh, I didn't see Oprah coming.
Right. Here's Oprah. Listen.
I just saw President-elect Trump with President Obama in the White House, and it gave me hope. Good. Gave me hope. I mean, I have to say, just to hear President-elect Trump say that he had respect for President Obama, it felt that he had reached a moment where he was actually humbled by that experience. To hear President Obama say that he has renewed confidence in the peaceful transition, I think everybody can take a deep breath.
It's all about unity.
Everybody can take a deep breath now.
Well, because...
Well, I'm glad that Oprah is relieved about the peaceful transition of power. As we know, there wasn't a peaceful transition of power because of people like Oprah Winfrey's audience on the left. They're the ones who were doing the rioting and the protesting. Donald Trump behaved like a perfect gentleman, and the left didn't. But here's what's interesting. This is Oprah Winfrey we're talking about. And for making a comment like that, she wasn't making a comment that said, I have become a Trump supporter. She didn't make a comment saying, I'm against repealing Obamacare. She simply said that having seen a picture of Obama and Trump in the White House together shaking hands made her feel more relaxed. And for this, she was pilloried, ripped to shreds by the left. How could you possibly do anything to make an excuse for this monster, this Hitler, this Nazi, executioner named Donald Trump? This is Oprah Winfrey that we're talking about. And so this is my entire point. They can't help themselves. And we can see this most clearly on America's college campuses, where we are growing the newest and freshest bunch of left-wing crybabies. These are the ones that really scare me. People like Jada Pinkett Smith, I just somewhat bored and slightly amused and mostly feel sorry for. But these young people that are being grown on college campuses today are really terrifying. So let's talk about Evergreen State College. I'm pretty sure it's in Colorado, not 100% sure. But Evergreen State College is perhaps the most liberal college in America. And that's saying something, because I've been to conservative colleges and they're unbelievably liberal now. Evergreen College had a tradition along with some other schools. And the tradition was this, that on one day out of the year, black students, or students of color, I suppose I should say, because it wasn't just black students, would not show up to school so that everybody else could see what the world would look like if the black people or the people of color weren't here. Well, okay. But this year, Evergreen College decided that rather than having black people voluntarily not show up, Evergreen College decided that what they were going to do is they were going to exclude white people for a day. If you were white, you could not come to school on that day. This is to make up for, of course, your incredible white privilege, which has given you all these benefits like attending Evergreen College. Now, Evergreen College, extremely super liberal college, staffed by super progressive teachers, because if it wasn't staffed by these kind of people, we wouldn't have this kind of nonsense. But one professor at Evergreen said, now, hold on a minute. You just can't just ban white people because they're white. That's racism. That's the whole thing we're fighting against. And then things got interesting. Students rioted. They took over the campus. They started to have all kinds of debates. They started carrying baseball bats. None of them felt safe anymore. They didn't have their safe space. They were all triggered by this. You can see them now. They're shrouding this guy down. They're threatening his life. The professor who simply said it's racist to exclude white people was forced to leave campus under armed guard and had to conduct classes in a park because the police said they could not protect him from the tolerant, peaceful, diversity-loving students who simply could not abide the fact that one of their professors might point out that excluding people from school forcefully because of their skin color just might be racism. And they started to get violent. And they'll continue to get violent. And it's going to get worse and worse and worse until it finally doesn't get worse. And I think the reason I'm quite sure it's not going to get worse, that it will get worse, but that eventually it will essentially just burn itself out like any other catastrophe or any other catastrophic wildfire anyway, is because of a clip that I'm about to show you finally to wrap this up. Here are two students at an extremely liberal university. Take a good look at both of them, because these are both far left-wing progressives. And it's a little clip, about 40 seconds. Just catch a little bit of this interaction between these two very progressive, very, very, very progressive, diversity-loving left-wing college students.
Parents, you got some sisters?
You're saying that I can't have a hairstyle because of your culture?
Yeah,
Why?
because it's my culture. Do you know what box means?
Do you know it was in Egyptian culture? Are you Egyptian? Nah, bro, you're not.
Are you Egyptian?
No, but it doesn't matter.
Wait, where's Egypt? Tell me.
You know what, girl?
Where's Egypt?
Dude, go. You have no right to tell me what I can not read. Huh?
Where's Egypt?
Yo, girl, stop touching me right now.
Yo, girl, stop touching me right now. Come back.
Get off of me.
Come back, come back, come back. You put your hands on me, no words.
Well, what? Like, you're gonna make some shit because of what the hair I have? That's no reason, yo. I don't need your disrespect. I don't need your disrespect.
Why are you filming this?
Just for everyone's safety.
Come and see the violence inherent at the system. So there you go, right? This kid is wearing dreadlocks because he thinks it makes him in solidarity with the oppressed black people from all over the world. So that's his virtue signaling. He's trying to show everybody in the college by his demeanor, by his language, but especially by his dreadlocks. He's trying to demonstrate to all of the rest of the liberal progressives that he is really down with the struggle, and that he is really solidly on the side of the oppressed brown people all over the world, and is essentially saying, I'm ashamed of my just being white, so I'm going to wear dreadlocks to show everybody how down I am with it. But this young woman basically says, hey, wait a minute, what are you doing wearing dreadlocks? Those aren't part of your culture, they're part of my culture. You don't get to wear dreadlocks and take our culture. It's called cultural appropriation. You know, when you steal something from another person's culture, like, I don't know, electricity or penicillin or something like that, or the language. And so what you had in that little tiny little capsule, that little 40-second moment, is two really interesting dynamics. You have a young progressive student who's trying to virtue signal how left-wing he is and how committed he is to these progressive causes, and then you have a person who's a higher victim. You see, he's just a white male. He doesn't count. You got a black female here, so she is in a higher victimhood percentage. She's in a higher victimhood category, I should say, and that gives her the right to basically tell this guy that his entire existence is meaningless, and push him around too physically. Don't forget the physical violence part, because that's a big part of it with the left. So they use things like this. Really, ultimately, it's a fig leaf to justify their violent tendencies and their desire to simply tell other people what to do. They can't break it. It's built into their DNA. So that's just a quick overview of the entire idea of leftist politics. Critical theory to divide the country up, political correctness to defend against a counterattack. We don't have to listen to what you have to say because you're a racist or a homophobe or a bigot or whatever. We're going to just shut you up right now. And it works. And let's not forget, finally, folks, as we close this out, the charges of racism only work against people who aren't racist. You go up to a member of the Ku Klux Klan or the Nazi Party and accuse them of being a racist, they thank you and shake their hands. The only people that shut up when they're called racist are people who aren't racist, and they know how it works, and that's why they do it. That'll do it for Bill Whittle's Hot Mic for today, and also for this week. We'll be back Monday with all kinds of disasters and catastrophes. I'm sure Hot Mic will be out of his makeup by then. So we will see you next week on Hot Mic here on NRATV.